A long time ago, in the land of Israel, there lived a wise and brave woman named Deborah. Deborah was special because she was both a judge and a prophet. In those days, a judge wasn't just someone who worked in a courtroom. Instead, a judge was a leader chosen by God to help the Israelites. Deborah lived under a palm tree called the Palm of Deborah. This tree was located between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim. Every day, people from all over Israel would come to Deborah to seek counsel, advice, and guidance. They trusted her to help them with their problems, whether they were big or small. She listened carefully to each person and provided wise solutions based on God's teachings. As a prophet, Deborah had a special connection with God. She could hear his voice and understand his messages. God chose her to deliver important messages to the people of Israel. This was a very important job because the Israelites needed to know what God wanted them to do. Deborah always made sure to share God's messages clearly and truthfully. The Israelites respected Deborah because she was different from other leaders. She didn't wear fancy clothes or live in a grand palace. Instead, she lived a simple life, focusing on helping others. Deborah's heart was full of love and kindness. She cared deeply for her people and wanted the best for them. Her strong faith in God gave her the courage and wisdom she needed to lead Israel. During Deborah's time, the Israelites were facing many challenges. They were often attacked by their enemies, and their lives were full of hardship. The Israelites had turned away from God, and because of this, they were struggling. God allowed their enemies, the Canaanites, to oppress them so that they would realize their mistakes and turn back to Him. The Canaanites were a powerful group of people who had been oppressing the Israelites for many years. Their king, Jabin, and his army commander, Sisera, were very strong and had many iron chariots, which made them almost invincible in battle. Sisera's soldiers had 900 iron chariots. These chariots were like the tanks of their time, strong, fast, and almost impossible to defeat. The Israelites, on the other hand, didn't have such advanced weapons. They were mostly farmers and shepherds, not trained soldiers. This made them very scared of the Canaanites. For 20 long years, the Canaanites oppressed the Israelites. They made life very hard for them. The Israelites were forced to live in constant fear, hiding in the mountains and caves to escape from their enemies. They couldn't farm their land or travel safely because Sisera's army would attack them. The Israelites felt helpless and were very sad. They knew they needed God's help to free them from this terrible situation, so they cried out to God for help. They prayed and asked Him to save them from the Canaanites. God heard their prayers and decided it was time to act. He chose Deborah, the wise and brave judge, to lead the Israelites and deliver them from their troubles. One day, as Deborah was sitting under the palm of Deborah, she received a special message from God. God told her that it was time to fight back against the Canaanites and free the Israelites from their oppression. He instructed her to call a man named Barak and give him specific orders for the battle. Barak was a respected leader from the tribe of Naphtali. He was brave and had experience in fighting, but even he was afraid of Sisera's powerful army. When Deborah sent for Barak, he came to her and listened carefully to what she had to say. Deborah told Barak, "The Lord, the God of Israel, commands you to go to Mount Tabor. Take with you 10,000 men from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun. I will lead Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariots and troops to the Kishon River and give him into your hands." Barak listened to Deborah's words, but he was still afraid. He knew that fighting against Sisera's iron chariots would be very difficult. So he said to Deborah, "If you go with me, I will go, but if you don't go with me, I won't go." Deborah agreed to go with Barak. She understood his fear and wanted to support him. But she also told him, "Because of the way you are going about this, the honor will not be yours. For the Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman." Barak accepted this, and together they started preparing for the battle. They gathered an army of 10,000 men from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun, just as God had instructed. The Israelites were encouraged by Deborah's presence and her faith in God's plan. They were ready to follow her and Barak into battle, trusting that God would help them win. Meanwhile, Sisera heard about the gathering of the Israelite army. He quickly assembled his iron chariots and soldiers, preparing to crush the Israelites once and for all. The stage was set for a great battle between the Israelites, led by Deborah and Barak, and the powerful Canaanite army. Led by Sisera, the Israelites were determined to fight for their freedom and to follow God's plan, trusting in His promise to deliver them from their enemies. Mount Tabor was a significant place for this battle. It was a high hill that provided a strategic advantage. From its summit, the Israelites could see the surrounding area and prepare for the Canaanite attack. Deborah and Barak led the army to Mount Tabor, and the men camped there, ready for the upcoming battle. As dawn broke, the Israelites saw Sisera's army approaching. The sight of the iron chariots was terrifying, but Deborah's presence gave them courage. She stood with Barak and the men, ready to face the enemy. Deborah turned to Barak and said, "Go. This is the day the Lord has given Sisera into your hands. Has not the Lord gone ahead of you?" With Deborah's words ringing in his ears, Barak led the charge down Mount Tabor. The Israelite army followed him with a loud shout, ready to face the Canaanites. As they charged, something incredible happened. God sent a sudden and powerful rainstorm. The Kishon River began to flood, and the ground turned into a muddy swamp. The rain turned the plains into a muddy quagmire. Sisera's iron chariots, which had been his greatest strength, now became his downfall. The heavy chariots got stuck in the mud, unable to move. The Canaanite soldiers, who relied on the speed and power of their chariots, were thrown into confusion and panic. Their powerful war machines were now useless. Seeing the chaos in Sisera's ranks, Barak and his men pressed the attack. The Israelites, filled with the strength and courage that came from their faith in God, fought with all their might. They struck down the Canaanite soldiers, who were disoriented and unable to defend themselves effectively. The battle turned into a rout as the Israelites overwhelmed their enemies. Sisera, realizing that his army was defeated and his chariots were useless, abandoned his chariot and fled on foot. He ran away from the battlefield, seeking refuge and safety, leaving his soldiers behind to face the wrath of the Israelites. Sisera ran as fast as he could, his heart pounding with fear. He knew he had to find a safe place to hide until the Israelites stopped searching for him. He came across the tent of a woman named Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. The Kenite were a nomadic tribe that had a friendly relationship with King Jabin, Sisera's master, so Sisera believed he would be safe with Jael. Jael saw Sisera approaching and went out to meet him. She greeted him warmly and invited him into her tent. Sisera, exhausted and desperate for rest, accepted her invitation. Jael offered him a place to lie down and covered him with a blanket to hide him. Sisera was grateful for her kindness and felt a sense of relief. "I am very thirsty," Sisera said to Jael. "Please give me some water to drink." Jael, wanting to put him at ease, opened a skin of milk and gave it to him instead. The milk was soothing and helped Sisera relax. Soon, he felt sleepy and asked Jael to stand guard at the entrance of the tent. "If anyone comes and asks if someone is here, say no," he instructed her. Jael assured him that she would protect him. Sisera, now feeling safe and secure, lay down and quickly fell into a deep sleep. As he slept, Jael knew that she had a crucial decision to make. She understood that Sisera was the enemy of Israel and that God's people were fighting to free themselves from his oppression, with great courage and determination. Jael decided to act. She took a tent peg and a hammer, tools that she was familiar with as a nomadic woman who often set up and took down tents. Quietly and carefully, she approached the sleeping Sisera. With a strong and steady hand, she drove the tent peg through Sisera's temple, killing him instantly. Sisera, the feared commander of the Canaanite army, was defeated by the bravery of a woman. Meanwhile, Barak and his men were pursuing the fleeing Canaanite soldiers. When Barak arrived at Jael's tent, she went out to meet him and said, "Come, I will show you the man you are looking for." Barak entered the tent and saw Sisera lying dead with the tent peg through his temple. Barak realized that Deborah's prophecy had come true. The honor of defeating Sisera had indeed gone to a woman. The news of Sisera's death spread quickly, and the Israelites rejoiced. They had not only won the battle but had also seen their greatest enemy defeated. The power of the Canaanites was broken, and King Jabin's oppression over Israel began to crumble. This victory marked the beginning of a new era for the Israelites. Under Deborah's wise leadership and the bravery of people like Barak and Jael, Israel was finally free from the tyranny of their enemies. The people of Israel celebrated their freedom and praised God for his miraculous help. After the incredible victory over Sisera and the Canaanite army, the Israelites were filled with joy and gratitude. They had seen firsthand the power of God and the importance of faith and courage. Deborah, the wise and brave judge, wanted to ensure that the people never forgot what God had done for them. She decided to commemorate the victory with a song of praise, a song that would be remembered for generations. Deborah and Barak, the leaders of the Israelite army, stood before the people and began to sing. Their voices carried across the land, telling the story of the battle and the triumph of faith. The song began with a call to praise the Lord. When the princes in Israel take the lead, when the people willingly offer themselves, praise the Lord. Deborah's song recounted how God had chosen leaders and inspired the people to rise up and fight for their freedom. She sang about the tribes of Israel that had answered the call to battle, highlighting their bravery and willingness to follow God's plan. She praised the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun for their courage, as they had risked their lives on the battlefield. The song also told of the treacherous conditions that had turned the tide of battle. Deborah sang about the rainstorm that God had sent, the flooding of the Kishon River, and how the iron chariots of Sisera's army had become stuck in the mud. She described how God had fought for Israel, using the forces of nature to ensure their victory. From the heavens the stars fought, from their courses they fought against Sisera, she sang, emphasizing the divine intervention that had led to their success. Deborah's song honored Jael, the woman who had bravely defeated Sisera. She sang about how Jael had welcomed Sisera into her tent, given him milk to drink, and then, with great courage, killed him with a tent peg. Deborah praised Jael as most blessed of women, recognizing her crucial role in securing Israel's freedom. Jael's act of bravery was celebrated as a pivotal moment in the battle, showing that God could use anyone, regardless of their status or strength, to fulfill his plans. The song also highlighted the despair of Sisera's mother, who waited in vain for her son's return. Deborah sang about how Sisera's mother looked out of the window, expecting him to come back victorious with spoils of war. Instead, he had met his end at the hands of a courageous woman. This part of the song served as a poignant reminder of the cost of oppression and the ultimate justice of God. Deborah's song concluded with a powerful declaration of God's greatness and a call for continued faithfulness. So may all your enemies perish, O Lord. But may those who love you be like the sun when it rises in its strength. This final verse reminded the Israelites that their strength came from God and that they should remain devoted to him. The song of Deborah and Barak became a cherished part of Israelite culture. It was sung during celebrations and passed down through generations, reminding the people of their history and the importance of trusting in God. The story of Deborah, Barak, and Jael was not just a tale of military victory, it was a testament to the power of faith, courage, and divine intervention. Because of the faith and leadership of Deborah, the bravery of Barak, and the courage of Jael, Israel enjoyed peace for 40 years. The people rebuilt their lives and grew stronger in their faith. They remembered that God had delivered them from their enemies and that he would continue to guide and protect them as long as they remained faithful. Lessons from the story of Deborah. 1. God can use anyone to do great things, no matter who they are. In the story of Deborah, we learn that God can use anyone to accomplish his purposes, no matter their background or status. Deborah was a woman and a judge in Israel, which was unusual at that time because men typically held positions of leadership. Despite this, God chose Deborah to lead the Israelites and help them overcome their enemies. Deborah's role shows us that God values all people and can use anyone who is willing to follow him. She wasn't a warrior or a king, but her faith and wisdom made her an important leader. This teaches us that we don't have to be the strongest, the smartest, or the most powerful to be used by God. What matters is our willingness to listen to him and follow his guidance. God sees our hearts and our potential, and he can help us do amazing things when we trust in him, too. Being brave and trusting God can help us overcome big challenges. Deborah's story shows us the importance of being brave and trusting in God's plans. When God told Deborah that Barak should lead the Israelite army to fight against their enemies, Deborah didn't hesitate. She passed on God's message to Barak, encouraging him to take on the challenge. Barak was scared because the enemy's army was very powerful, but Deborah's trust in God gave him the courage he needed. She assured Barak that God would be with them and help them win the battle. This teaches us that even when things seem scary or difficult, we can find courage by trusting in God. We might face big challenges in life, but with God's help, we can overcome them. Just like Deborah and Barak, we can be brave and trust that God has a plan for us and will give us the strength we need. 3. Working together can lead to success. The story of Deborah and Barak teaches us the importance of working together. When Deborah told Barak about God's plan, Barak said he would only go if Deborah went with him. Deborah agreed, and together they led the Israelites to victory. This shows us that we can achieve great things when we work as a team. Deborah and Barak combined their strengths, Deborah's wisdom and faith with Barak's leadership and bravery. By working together, they were able to defeat a powerful enemy. This lesson applies to our lives too. Whether at school, at home, or in our communities, working together and helping each other can make difficult tasks easier and lead to success. It's important to support one another, share our strengths, and trust in each other's abilities. Teamwork can help us accomplish goals that might seem impossible on our own. 4. God listens when we pray for help. In Deborah's story, we see that God listens to our prayers. The Israelites were suffering under the harsh rule of King Jabin and his commander, Sisera. They cried out to God for help, and God heard their prayers. He sent Deborah to lead them and bring them victory over their enemies. This shows us that God cares about our problems and is always ready to help us. When we are in trouble or need guidance, we can pray to God and trust that He is listening. Sometimes, the answers to our prayers may not come right away or in the way we expect. But God always hears us and has a plan to help us. Just like He sent Deborah to help the Israelites, He will send the right help at the right time for us too. Knowing that God hears our prayers gives us comfort and hope, reminding us that we are never alone in our struggles. 5. God gives us the strength we need to do His work. The story of Deborah and Barak shows us that God gives us the strength we need to do His work. When it was time to fight against Sisera and his army, Deborah told Barak, "Go. This is the day the Lord has given Sisera into your hands. Has not the Lord gone ahead of you?" With these words, Deborah reminded Barak that God was with them and would give them the strength to win the battle. Barak and his army defeated Sisera's powerful forces because they relied on God's strength and guidance. This teaches us that we don't have to rely only on our own abilities. When we face difficult tasks or challenges, we can ask God for strength and help. He will provide us with what we need to succeed. Whether it's doing well in school, helping a friend, or standing up for what is right, God's strength is available to us when we trust in Him. 6. Having faith in God's plan helps us face difficult situations. Deborah's faith in God's plan is a central lesson in her story. She believed in God's message and shared it with Barak, encouraging him to lead the army against their enemies. Even though the task was daunting, Deborah's faith never wavered. She trusted that God's plan would bring victory. This teaches us the importance of having faith in God, especially when we face difficult situations. Sometimes, life can be challenging, and we might not understand why things are happening. But like Deborah, we can trust that God has a plan for us and that He is in control. Having faith means believing that God will guide us and help us, even when the outcome is uncertain. It gives us the courage to move forward and face our challenges with confidence, knowing that God is always with us and His plans are for our good. 7. We should celebrate and thank God when He helps us. After the Israelites won the battle, Deborah and Barak sang a song to celebrate and thank God for His help. This song, known as the Song of Deborah, praised God for the victory and remembered all the ways He had helped them. It is important to celebrate and give thanks to God when He answers our prayers and helps us. This not only shows our gratitude but also reminds us and others of God's goodness and power. Celebrating God's victories can be as simple as saying a prayer of thanks, sharing our story with others, or singing songs of praise like Deborah and Barak did. It helps us remember that God is always with us and encourages us to keep trusting in Him. Just as the Israelites celebrated their victory, we should take time to thank God for the blessings and help He gives us every day. And that's the end of Deborah's story. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the inspiring story of Deborah, a true example of faith and courage. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our exciting stories. Thanks for watching, and remember, with faith and courage, we can overcome any challenge. See you next time.